right. It's today's episode of Your Daily Scrum with professional Scrum trainers Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller. We get together each and every day to help you get better at Scrum each and every day. Like and subscribe. Check out the merch. Merch is on the shelf in YouTube. Get the Squirrel Burger hoodie and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Check out our book, Fixing Your Scrum. Details and descriptions about our classes are in the description. Leave a comment. Your comments turn into questions. In fact, I think a few of these questions that are coming up over the next couple days are directly from the comment section. And so keep that moving along as well. Todd, today's question. It's a good question. Can a Scrum team abandon a product goal?
Yeah. Can I read a quote from the Scrum Guide, Ryan?
Yeah.
The last sentence underneath the commitment to product goal. The product goal is a long-term objective for the Scrum team. They must fulfill or abandon one objective before taking on the next.
Seems like you can abandon a product goal, Todd.
It does. I think there's abandon is an interesting word. And I think this, like you were mentioning, this was specifically mentioned in the comments. Abandon is an interesting word because I start to think about validation or invalidating, validating or invalidating a product goal. Abandon to me means a couple things, like maybe it's invalid. Maybe your product goal isn't valid anymore. Maybe another emergent product goal that is of far more value has peeked its head into the window. So you can abandon it. I wonder, Ryan, what you're thinking in regards to the consequences that could potentially face you if you abandon it.
The word abandon is so abrupt, right? And so the word abandon, what I would think of it as is we're going to leave the work as it sits right here. And we're not touching it. We're not cleaning it up. We're not continuing down this. We're out. And so people might have been attached to an idea. There might be some sense of loss or waste or irritation. I mean, there's going to be I think this will be an emotional thing for a little bit. But ultimately, if a Scrum team, and I think more specifically, let's zero in on product owner for a second. If the product owner signals that a product goal needs to be abandoned, I would hope that there's good data. There's an excellent reason. I mean, look, sometimes what we're building, we to your point, validate or invalidate. Sometimes an idea just doesn't get validated. And we need to pivot quickly. Like we say this in our classes all the time. One of the big points of adopting agility, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, or something else, you're trying to create the opportunity to make new and better decisions frequently. Sometimes that decision is going to be abandon this. It's not working. And people will say, well, what do you mean? How no one ever does that? It's great companies do it all the time. Pepsi Clear was abandoned when it didn't work out. Google Glass was abandoned when people were getting knocked out on the subway. The Amazon phone was abandoned when I was the only person in North America who bought it. Like it just.
I had a Microsoft phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were both suckers for failed experiments with phones.
I think this comes back to the product goal gives us a long-term focus for our product. And if we're unwilling to adapt, which has been, I think, your big point for the past year or so of the inability to adapt destroys companies. If we're unable to adapt, and by adapt in this sense means pivoting in the moment to a new product goal, I think you're in trouble. You're building things that people don't want.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And is that where I will give an exception here is that this should very likely be something that doesn't occur often. I think you should absolutely abandon product goals, but if you're consistently abandoning product goals, your team's focus is swinging like this all over the place. So I would suggest in that case, I mean, the product goal is meant to be a long-term objective, which creates long-term focus for a Scrum team. Right? You and I talked about, I think, in previous state about a time horizon for this is 3 to 6 months, maybe. No, Scrum Guide's not explicit on that, but that's just a Todd and Ryan thing, I believe. But I don't know that this should be a regular thing. I don't know. Maybe it could be, but
if it is, Todd,
it seems like it's.
So if you're on a Scrum team and this is a regular thing, sit down with your whole Scrum team and go through our free EBM course. And learn how to measure better, learn how to figure out what your customers want a little better, and try to stabilize that a little bit. I think EBM could be a good stabilizer in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, even another thing too with EBM is shorten your time horizon for what you're looking at for product goals. Because if your product goals are 3 years long and you're constantly abandoning them, that's way too long. If you find 3 months could be too long, I mean, that could be too long. So that could be another thing, right? Maybe you're in such a complex environment that a 1 month product goal is right for you, right? I think that's why the Scrum Guide is not explicit on a time horizon for a product goal, and I think rightly so because of these things. But all the stuff that you said, adaptability, focus, all these things that the product goal gets us 100%. I do agree 100% with you too. The word abandon here is a little rough. Reminds me of sprint cancellation and the disruptions there. But yeah, I don't.
And I guess one final point here: you don't have to abandon a product goal if you need to modify it slightly. I mean, if you want to make a slight correction or become more specific, or if you learn something, I don't think total abandonment is required, right?
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's okay to slightly modify these. Like,
I think it refines as we deliver on sprint goals, and that's a different discussion. This is basically saying this whole vision that we had out, not refined. So, all right, let us know what you think in the comments. We love your comments. We turn them into videos. Like and subscribe. Those numbers keep going up. Thank you very much. Check out the merch that's going to pop up along with our 2 videos. We have 2 playlists, actually, Scrum Framework and EBM. If you're struggling with that swaying of what we're going to build, like Todd described, check out the EBM playlist. It could be helpful. Leave your comments. Check out the socials. For Todd, I'm Ryan. Go forward, do some great Scrum things. Get yourself a hoodie. We'll see you tomorrow.